Hey, welcome back everyone. So in this video I want to show you how I've been utilizing 3D sculpts to get some of my drawings done. And really this is more of a practice piece of just saying, okay, what if I needed a character throwing like a downward punch, or maybe he was shooting power from his hand or whatever, and I needed that angle of the back of the arm. And so I took one of my sculpts that I did actually a while ago, but then I just chopped off the side of it, and I'm just using it as reference. I was able to pose it in the angle that I want. If I wanted to, I could have took this in Blender or something else, and I could have really made the exaggeration with the camera lens and made it very foreshortened. But I felt like this was adequate. But there's a lot that you can do when you generate either your own 3D models or you get them from somewhere else. I'm actually going to share some of mine for free on Gumroad just so you can play around with this, because you can actually bring these into Clip Studio Paint, and I've even mapped UVs on them so that you can bring them into Procreate. Procreate's lighting is amazing, and let me know if you want to see videos on that. But it's fun to do. It's fun to bring a model in there, and then you can dynamically light it and control the perspective. And so that right there is a big helping hand for a lot of different illustrations. But the real trick is you still have to bridge the gap through your drawing process, because I don't know, I kind of consider it almost like Googling, right? I've gotten pretty good at Googling over the years, but every time I go to do it, I find myself wasting a tremendous amount of time trying to find the right shot. Now, another one that we talk about, and a lot of people mention on the forums and things like that, is, well, just take your own pictures. Always draw from life and take your own pictures. And that works as well, but I don't know, I feel like there's aspects of doing modeling, even if it's basic modeling, that are just going to outweigh that. And mainly because my arm doesn't look like that arm. So I'm not going to get that no matter how hard I try. Now again, learning to bridge the gaps as an artist and see through it, and maybe look at another picture where the definition is right, but it's not the right pose. You create the right pose, the right lighting, because you can obviously control that with your own lights and camera. But I don't know, there's a certain part where sculpting has some real benefits as well. Now, I use ZBrush, and I also use a few others like Nomad. Blender is free, and it's got some amazing sculpting tools that I would say in a short amount of time is going to get to ZBrush type standards. It's just grown so much since the program has come out. I can't see it not happening at some point, but it's still fully functional and it's free as long as you got a good desktop computer to run it. A nice cheap option for the iPad Pro is actually called Nomad Sculpt, and it's pretty powerful as well. I actually use it to create the UVs for some of these models, which it's super simple. So you can see I'm just drawing from looking at this, and obviously I'm changing things. Now I'm going to put the reference away, and this is the same way I do it when I draw from life and I find like a good pose that I want to use. I draw from it for a bit, and then I want to see what I can come up with without it. Like, especially with this one, I didn't use the dynamic lighting options. So in things like Clip Studio Paint and Procreate, you can add multiple lights. Procreate, you can have as many lights as you want, which is really, really cool. And you can position the shadows in the light anywhere you want on the model, and that is super cool. Like, it just has a really neat effect. If you introduce the color, you can actually utilize it to do some of the paint work for you. Like, you can get it ready for the next stage, which is painting in your colors. Well, you can do that by colorizing your lights, so it's just super cool. But here I've been practicing trying to do more core shadows through the anatomy from the start. A lot of times I'll block it in, then I'll erase it back. Here I'm just kind of going in and adding a bunch of segmented core shadows, and they're a bit too segmented, by the way. Now I'll blue line it, and I'll start inking the work and try to connect it all together. And again, this is something where when you pay attention to lighting on a model, and whether it be a ZBrush or a sculpture or a human model, you'll see that the shadows don't segment as much as I've done here. And so I've been paying more and more attention to that, but I did kind of miss the mark here. I think I hopefully clean up some of that as I go here, but at the same time, it's being aware of that type of stuff, right? That it looks cool maybe to stylize and segment and do all this weird stuff with your rendering, but eventually you just start recognizing it as, okay, that's not really the way it looks. So is that a distraction for my viewers? Probably so. And so you start compromising what you think looks cool for what actually works or what it might actually look like. And that's, welcome to the life of being an artist, right? It's a constant tug of war of reality and our imaginations and what we can bring to the table with that, which I love that component of drawing. Don't ever compromise too much. Like, you have to be inventive, imaginative, and play around with things that don't work so that you find out how far you can push the envelope, I don't know what's that. But you got to play around with those variables. You can't just like give in and be like, everything has to be the way it looks in real life, because that's a very boring way to draw, I think, personally. I mean, I'm not knocking anybody that's really good at realism. Maybe it's because I'm not so great at it that I lean more towards the imaginative way of producing things and playing around with the concepts that aren't really as natural or whatever. But yeah, so there's a lot of segmentation here, and just basically filling in shapes of shadows and cutting into it like I like to do there. And then this isn't supposed to be any particular character, and I kind of wanted to do that because I noticed that when I do go to draw a certain character, then I'm more constricted with experimentation, just by a little bit, not too much. But if this is Die Hard, it reminds me of Die Hard from Youngblood. I almost said X-Force, but for some reason I was getting it confused. But Rob Liefeld's character, and so I'm like picturing that character at this point, but it's not really who it was supposed to be. But it could be any masked crusader. And again, really the idea here is just to play around with some light and shadow, to play around with some rendering, and I don't know, I really like the idea of starting with a 3D model for this one. It seemed to work pretty flawlessly. Now, and by that I mean, I don't mean that the artwork is flawless by any means. There's always flaws in my work, and hopefully you love that. But what I'm saying is it was seamlessly integrated into my workflow, where I didn't feel like I was trying too hard. Like, that's one of my big conundrums with even studying from life, is it just changes the creative direction that I'm taking. But when I sculpt the work, it's like, no, I created that, I made that. In fact, I don't know, if I needed to trace it, I also wouldn't feel bad, because I actually sculpted it first. I did a lot of learning through that part of the process. Plus, one of the things I absolutely love about sculpting is that it helps me to identify forms and volumes that I think I got a good grasp on. So like in my imagination, I'm like, well, it'd look cool if the tricep like ballooned out like right here, and the bicep did this, or whatever part of the body I'm illustrating. And all of a sudden I go to sculpt it, and I'm like, wow, it only looks good from that one angle, but as I rotate it, it falls apart. And so that's again what I really like about sculpting and 3D in general. It helps us to realize what things work in a more three-dimensional way. Because if we get so used to drawing in 2D, which is what we're doing, we're like faking it, right? And then all of a sudden you go to sculpt it or design it in 3D, and you realize, wow, that is really hard to make look like I'm envisioning in my mind. So it's a good equalizer, I think, to teach us more. And then if you go back and forth, hopefully you can bring some of that back to your 2D illustrations. And there's artists that utilize all sorts of 3D techniques, even within really amazing 2D paintings and illustration drawings. One of the videos I watched with Alex Ross was super cool, and he had mentioned, it's actually the part I got that I said earlier in the video where I wouldn't feel bad about tracing my own sculpt. And so he had mentioned in the video that he realized that if he started sculpting the Fantastic Four characters, that he could pose them any way he wanted, and then he could trace them and not feel bad. And I don't know, I just totally agree with that sentiment, that idea, that concept. And again, I feel like it's just good knowledge for drawing more dimensionally and more confidently. But not everybody's gonna enjoy the sculpting process, but there's probably a lot you can learn from models in general. And I mean, like, have you ever take one of your cool figurines that you got sitting in your studio and like posed it up on the ledge and drew that that worm's eye view, or that you know, the angle up or whatever. Like it really does work, but you know, if you stick too wholeheartedly to the source material or the 3D model, it's probably going to come out a bit stiff. That's one of the biggest drawbacks that I see. But I think that can be bridged with time and, you know, learning how to pose your characters better. But you really don't need a super refined 3D sculpt either. You can do a pretty basic version and get a lot from it. And again, let me know if you want to see more of it, and if you want me to share more of the models that I generate. I'm going to be making them anyways. I don't know, I really love it. It gives me a break from drawing all the time as well. So I'm like one of those types where every now and then I need to chill and do something else, but I still like just doing something that's art related. So it's like I'm taking a break, but I'm not. You know, it's still art. But so let me know what you think of the content, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. I'll make sure to get that on the channel as soon as I can. As always, I'm super appreciative of you watching and supporting what I do here. Good luck with the art, and bye for now.